Here we are. Happy Sunday. Flames are on a bit of a win streak, and we've got Flames Nation live for you on a Sunday afternoon. What's going on? It's Steinberg and Pike. We got a good crew with us already, and hopefully everyone has lots to talk about on this Sunday afternoon. Noah, Dallas, Jordan, Jay, all in on a Sunday afternoon. What's going on, Mr. Pike? How we doing?
Not bad, man. I mean, it's in southern Alberta. It's a beautiful day, not nearly as rainy and dreary as Saturday was, and so went out for a nice morning hike, and now get to chat with Pat about all things Flames.
Yeah, we got lots to get to as Pike is in his home studio. I'm hanging out in my home studio, and are they really studios? They're just offices, I think. I think Pike's is just his basement. But you know what? We're going to call them home studios because if you're listening to this in audio form, you'd have no idea where we are right now. Flames Nation Live, brought to you by our friends at DoorDash. Use the promo code FNLiveDD. That'll get you a discount on your first order, and we'll get you free delivery. DoorDash sponsors Flames Nation Live each and every time, and use that promo code FNLiveDD if you want a discount on your first order and free delivery. There is yesterday's result, Saturday's result, a 4-3 overtime win for the Flames on the road in Washington. We'll get to the milestone part of it in a little bit there, Pike, but I thought once again, lots to like about the Flames. Was the second period what you wanted to see? And do you love the fact that they gave up a 3-goal lead after 20 minutes of play? Maybe not, but they were able to settle back in after Washington had kind of tilted things dramatically. A good third period. Lindholm completes his second career hat trick in the overtime frame to pick up the victory. I don't know. There's been a lot to like about the two games they've played on the road, maybe outside of the 2 second periods that we've seen to this point.
Yeah, and if you look at it from an expected goal standpoint, Detroit, based on the math, caved the Flames in a little bit more than Washington did at 5-on-5 in that second period. Washington happens to have some elite talent on that team that can hurt you in a lot of ways. And shockingly, I feel bad a bit for Dan Vladar, because I think he gave up some goals, but I think his performance is better than the numbers indicated, because in that second period, the Flames got a little bit scrambly. If you look at the two even strength goals he gave up in that second period, the second goal and the third goal. I mean, on the second goal, you have a rookie coming up the wing, and Martin Ferveri, and he's a defenseman pinching, and he doesn't really have a reputation as being an amazing finisher. So he's on the ice against with the Washington Capitals top line of Wilson, Kuznetsov, and Ovechkin. So if you're the Flames, yeah, you're going to play the percentages and guard the middle of the ice. And unfortunately, he made a really good shot to beat the goalie. Okay, whatever. Then Noah Hannafin gets caught up on an odd man rush. He tries to come back to break up the 2-on-1. If you're Rasmus Andersson, you're thinking, do I guard Ovechkin or do I guard the pass? He didn't really do much of either, and so poor Dan Vladar didn't really, from his body language, it screamed, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do right now, and so he gets beat by. So if you're completely prepared for it and you play it completely perfectly, Ovechkin will make you pay more often than not. But they didn't play that perfectly, so they didn't really give themselves a chance of success there. But that said, I mean, they're playing a team that came into that game undefeated in regulation, and they were pretty much full marks for, I'd say, 50% of that. I mean, 50% of the game, they went toe-to-toe with a really good team. The other 50%, they hung on for dear life, and, they ended up getting 2 points out of it. So all things considered, first 2 games of a 5-game road trip, but they started behind the 8 ball. They're above 500 now. They've won half of their games so far, which is, if you look at the math, they're going to need to get probably to 95 points to have a realistic or pretty decent chance at a playoff spot, which means about 1.2 points per game. So right now they're on pace. So they just need to keep plugging away and finding ways to get points, especially if you're going to give up 3-point games, do it outside of your division. That's the best advice we can give them at this point.
And I'm sure that they're tuned in right now, writing this stuff down in New York City. That's where they're playing next. They're taking on the Rangers on Monday at Madison Square Garden. A very good Rangers team, 4-1-1 to start their season. They scored 3 goals in about 4 minutes on Saturday afternoon against Ottawa to break the hearts of the Senators. That was the other game going on while the Flames and Washington were playing. What do we got on the live chat right now? We got Jordan who says, my one thought is, please, no more bump backs on the power play to Johnny. I bet there's an over-under on how many times they'll do it. Pike, people absolutely despise that bump back on the power play. Like with more than they hate world problems, they hate the bump back on the power play. It's not unique to the Flames. Lots of other teams do it. Lots of other teams don't do it. But yeah, there are people who absolutely.
If there's one thing I want to see from Kirk Muller this year, I want him to use the flying V that he used with Montreal in 2017, because that was just amazing to watch, and they scored. So like I think that one of the storylines for the Flames, like, to be successful, they're going to have to basically saw off about even strength and find a way to get an extra goal every game or two on the power play, because even strength they're not going to win a lot of games even strength. Kirk Muller, his ability to get as much as he can out of the 2 power play units is going to be an ongoing storyline, because the Flames, more so than any aspect of their entire team, I think over the last few years, the power play has been less than some of its parts. And if Muller can get a little bit more out of them, probably with some creative deployments and creative zone entries, I think maybe that'll be the thing that either sinks the Flames season or gets them in the postseason.
This also from Jordan. With all the rookies from this year's draft scoring, how do we think Coronado would be doing? I honestly, I have not thought about that. It's a fair question. I don't know. I think that he is a high-end talent. I think that he has got a lot of offensive ceiling, but knowing the size and the strength and knowing that's something that he really is focusing on working on here going forward, I don't know. I don't think that he'd be shooting the lights out. How's that? Like, I don't think that he'd be off to an incredible start to his NHL career, but that's
the thing that's going to help Coronado is a year, maybe 2, on an absolutely stacked Harvard team, just beating apart all these Hockey East teams. Because, if you look at the U.S. college system, it's the mindset right now, Michigan's a murderer's row of just disgustingly good hockey players. Harvard might be low-key one of the teams that's really being sort of forgotten about, because, in addition to Coronado, they're about a dozen deep with pretty good to very good NHL prospects. And, we saw, like, one of the things I think helped make Johnny Gaudreau as good as he was in college and helped progress him was that he played, like, Johnny Gaudreau is a pretty good freshman, but he wasn't a great freshman. But by playing with guys who were better than him and more polished, he got good very quickly. So I'm curious, like, who's going to be, or the Kevin Hayes or one of these guys who sort of the senior or junior on that team that's going to take Coronado and drag him into becoming a bona fide college star within his first year. Because if they can find some chemistry right away, they're going to be good. Harvard starts, I believe their first game is the 29th. They've been playing some scrimmages. So we'll believe me, we're going to be on Coronado watch for the next year or two until pen gets put to paper and we have to start tracking planes.
Yeah. Kyle wonders if there's any update on Connor Zary. Has not resumed skating with the team. So I would imagine just continues to recover from that ankle injury. He's not been sent back to AHL Stockton. He has not gotten on the ice with the Flames as of yet. So I would imagine just training, rehabbing, working through, recovering, all of that right now. That was about 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. So he's probably got.
It was second. Shinval got hurt in the first rookie game on that one weekend, and the Saturday Shinval got hurt. The Monday, Zary got hurt, and it's about a month now. So we're about 4 weeks. The timeline I heard kicking around both those guys was 6 to 8 ish, with ish very much emphasized. So I think I imagine we'll probably hear something about how they're doing. I'd say first week of November, because that'd be sort of, especially for, from what I remember, I think Shinval is a soft tissue thing, whereas with Coronado, Zari, it's a bone, and bone you can tell very quickly. Quick MRI, we know how much it heals. With tissue, it's entirely comfort based, which is the absolute pain of it. Like anyone who's ever had a high ankle sprain, they say, how long does it take to heal? I don't know. So, but yeah, it should be. I think both those guys probably sometime mid next month we'll hear something about what's going on with them.
Okay, and then this one from Jay says, not a fan of the Lewis Monahan Lucic line. Looks like they're setting Monahan up for failure almost with anyone else. It's funny. I think it might be time for a rethink on Calgary's three other forward lines. I think we got a pretty good idea what the one is. I think that we have got a pretty good idea that Tkachuk, Lindholm, and Gaudreau should be sticking together for the time being. But otherwise, yeah, I think that I don't mind Backlund and Coleman staying together. But yeah, I think that you could rethink things a little bit with those forward lines. And then Brad Richardson getting into this lineup at some point on this trip, I would imagine, changes things a little bit as well.
Yeah, I'm curious what we get out of Brad Richardson, because I think he was, penciled in as like the 4A center to Glenn Gaudin's 4B, and Glenn Gaudin's down in Stockton right now, so it seems like it's gonna be Richardson's spot eventually. But I think the X factor is, how is Dylan Dubé doing at center? Because depending on how they want to do it, can slide guys up and down. But I think the challenge is, we talked about this on the Flamesnation radio podcast last week, and the big challenge for the Flames is, how do they? I think the slotting of the centers is fascinating to me, because what is Monahan's thing? Because Backlund got Selke votes very consistently throughout his career. The last couple of years, not so much, but he still has a reputation of being a very good to borderline elite shutdown guy. And so whoever you put on his line by default becomes the shutdown line. So you might not get a ton of offense out of them, but you're going to get some, because you're going to be playing with good players. Lindholm is easily the team's best offensive center, and so you probably want to set him up for success, and whoever's on his line is going to be put in, sort of head-to-head matchups with the ottle team's best line and asked to outscore them. But what's Monahan's thing? Because, is Monahan as good as Backlund and Lindholm? He can be. I'd say he's probably the second best offensive guy, but can he be? Where's he stack up defensively? Because of the three of those guys, he might be the worst, at least in terms of a shutdown guy. I mean, but how much of that is rust? How much of that is the fact that he's probably made of scar tissue at this point? I mean, I feel bad besmirching Monahan's qualities as a hockey player, because my God, that guy's been put through basically a laundry ringer on his body over the last 2, 3, 4 years. So I don't want to rag on him too much, but what do you do with him? And I think figuring out the what do you do with Monahan question unlocks the rest of the lineup if you know what you're doing with them.
Yeah, and I'm waiting until I don't know, November, until I really start making any definitive judgments or making any or forming any definitive opinions on Monahan, just because he is still coming back from hip surgery. So that is still a work in progress for me. But it's October 24th, so we're getting close to November. It's not like November is now a month away or anything like that. Flamesnation Live, this segment of Flamesation Live, brought to you by our friends at Deuce Vodka. Pick them up wherever fine spirits are sold in your Alberta location. Does not carry Deuce Vodka. Make sure they get it in. Deuce Vodka, bringing you this portion of Flames Nation Live. More on the live chat in just a few minutes, but we have to address Johnny Gaudreau's milestone as he picks up a pair of primary assists on Saturday afternoon to get him from 498 to 500. He becomes the 10th player in franchise history to record 500 with the team, joining franchise leader Jerome McGinley with 1,095, then Fleury, McInnes, Nieuwendyk, Suter, Nielsen, Chouinard, Giordano, and Roberts. In terms of Flames lore, Pike, that's pretty elite company that Johnny has joined, and he did it in 524 games. So, not quite point per game in his career, but pretty darn close. And I know that there is a lot of debate on what Gaudreau's future should be with the team. I think that 500 points in 524 games, at least for me, adds a little bit more perspective to the conversation about just how foolish I think it is to just say they got to get rid of him and they got to move on from him.
Yeah, like we at the site we broke down his milestone into some categories. The cool thing is, the last 100 points, the 401 to 500, took 115 games, which is really that's pretty incredible considering he doesn't play for a team that had a lot of offensive success during those last 2-3 years. Similarly, his first 100 points came when the Flames were sort of coming out of that rebuild and took 115 games. So it's kind of interesting that the first 100 and the last 100 are sort of bookended with the same amount of points. His fastest 100 was 84 games, and that included that 99-point season in 18-19. So he's not too far away from it. And I think even if you say, what if he scores this little for the rest of his career, you're going to get a bargain if you sign him for a decent amount of time because, we've been waiting. I remember, speaking of, Matthew Coronado, one of the big things with Johnny Gaudreau when he was coming in from the USHL to college was, yeah, great USHL numbers, but, he's too small. I think he was listed as draft year 5'6", 135 from Central Scouting. So he started very, very small. And then he has bulked up to generously 157, but that might be with his gear on. And he still managed to just convert and learn and adapt. Like he's been a very adaptable, wiry, smart hockey player since he was a junior player with the USHL's Dubuque Fighting Saints. And now he's he's one of the most productive Flames of all time. He's 3 assists away from tying the Magic Man Kent Nilsson for assists. By the end of the season, he's probably going to be realistically top 5 all time in franchise assists in an era where they don't score a lot. All the guys ahead of him are Jerome McGinley and a bunch of guys from the 80s. So considering that in the 80s, defense was more of a suggestion than something that he actually did, it's kind of incredible he has the numbers. And at some point, we have to dig into the numbers at Hockey Reference and era adjust Gaudreau's production, because I'm pretty sure if you compared him to the best Flames players of all time, the guys with the gaudy numbers from the 1980s, I'm pretty sure he's going to be like top 2 or 3 now when you era adjust it. So if he's top 2 or 3 now, I think they got to take a long look at how they would replace that scoring if he left, because I don't know how you do it.
That's my point is, I know that he is not signed for next year, but to me it makes more sense to re-sign the guy than to trade him or lose him for nothing, because you're losing that trade. And well, if you lose him for nothing, then you're in really bad shape. So yeah, I'm with you on that front.
Just to jump in, a universally beloved player in Flames lore is Michael Backlund. He does a lot of things both on and off the ice. But when he was coming up for his unrestricted free agency year, basically this point a few years ago, the Flames analytics crew and the management team sat down and sort of just asked themselves, what does he do? And they broke down as many elements of his game as possible and said, how do we replace that? And the short answer was they had to sign 3 people. And it was cheaper to keep Michael Backlund at what they gave him than to replace him with 3 people. And I think I would guarantee the same kind of calculus is going on right now over the Saddle Dome in terms of figuring out how many people they need to get to replace Johnny Gaudreau.
Probably be more than 3. And our final question on the live chat comes from Jimmy. $4 million on Zadorov, and he's not playing. If he gets back in and fumbles again, as he has done every game, what do they do with this guy? Well, first of all, I'm not convinced Zadorov is at 100%. I think he's a little banged up. I only say that because Daryl Sutter intimated that to us on our coaches show on Sportsnet 960, that a few blue liners are banged up right now. He didn't practice with the team going back to last week before they left on this road trip. He hasn't played for the 2 games, and I think part of that is performance related, but I don't know if all of it is performance related. That's not trying to make excuses for Zadorov, because he's been rough going back to the preseason as well. But to Jimmy's point, if he gets back in and isn't good, then I think he comes back out again. And, if he's in for, say, Valimaki on Monday afternoon in New York and he's not very good, then I think you take him out again. And you kind of make him more of a rotational guy or a matchup dependent guy for the time being until he proves that he can be in this lineup on a game by game basis.
I'm right there with you. I think, Kirk Muller mentioned on a hit he did on the Flames website a couple days ago, sort of the same kind of thing where they had some guys during camp who were under the weather, who were banged up, who were fighting stuff. And so, I don't think they really feel they have a handle on basically all their guys yet, because is it fair to write off Zadorov on a couple games where he wasn't 100%? From their perspective, it probably doesn't. I mean, if you're going to, wash your hands of a guy, you want to know that you gave it the old college try, gave him every chance to show what he can do. And it's in kind of, I think Rasmus Anderson did the same thing. He was sort of sitting on the sidelines for a couple of days because of he was presumably battling some kind of an ailment. So I think the curious thing is going to be how they manage those defensemen, because realistically, there's how many defensemen are guys who something insane would have to happen for them to come out of the lineup. So it's basically what? Tanev, Hanifin, Anderson, and then there's a bunch of guys who can be in and out depending on various factors. And so if you're one of those 5 guys who aren't one of those 3 guys, I think the question is, can you find a way to stand out? I mean, I'll give Oliver Shillington credit. I mean, it took Zadorov having a couple bad games and whatever he's battling off the ice to get into the lineup, but I think he's been one of the more consistently good defensemen. Granted, Chris Tanev is a really good partner to have, but they set him up for success, and he's had some success. And so I think that's going to be, if you're the coaching staff, if you're Ryan Husker or Darryl Sutter going to the other 4 guys who want that kind of opportunity, you say, okay, be this good. So I think that's going to be a storyline that runs throughout the season, I think. And I don't think we'll be talking about this until late April at this point.
Unless somebody figures it out, which is obviously the goal. Unless somebody proves that they are an everyday top 4 guy, which as of right now they haven't been able to do. Good stuff on the live chat. Great stuff on the live conversation on Facebook Live. Always, you can find this program, Flames Nation Live, after the fact on YouTube, on Instagram, and we put it up as well on in podcast form. So lots of different ways that you can get Flames Nation Live, which is brought to you, as always, by our friends at DoorDash. Use the promo code FNLive. DD. What is kicking at Flames Nation? We've got Flames Nation Radio once a week. We've got all kinds of game day, after game day stuff. We are humming over at the Nation right now, Pike.
Yeah, and guess just to chime in, guess who's awesome apparently? Jacob Pelletier is leading the Stockton Heat in scoring. Isn't that kind of crazy?
He's not NHL ready.
Well, he's 20. I mean, he can't rent a car yet.
Well, you can rent a car. He can rent a car from Enterprise. It just is more expensive.
The official car rental agency of the National Hockey League. I only remember that because it keeps showing up in my email at them trying to send me promo codes, and I keep going, I live here. I own a car. Leave me alone, Enterprise. But yeah, it's going to be we're in the fun season. Basically, between now and the Olympics, we're going to be bombarding the site with any number of hockey things, pre and post game for the Heat, pre and post game for the Flames, mailbags, prospect updates, any number of statistical breakdowns of how the team's looking, and of course, Pat's smiling face. If you want to go to the gym and you don't have the chance to multitask and watch Pat's smiling face while he talks, download the podcast of this very broadcast. If not, pull it up on YouTube after the fact, because that way Pat can smile at you all the time.
And so can Pike. Be well, everybody. We will talk to you next week on Flames Nation Live. Enjoy the Flames and the Rangers, then the Flames and the Devils. Those are the next 2 games for Calgary on Monday and Tuesday. For Pike, I'm Steinberg. It's been another edition of Flames Nation Live, brought to you by DoorDash.